Good morning, everyone. This is Deb Smith, editor of Rug Cooking Magazine. If you're looking for the Old Tattered Flag book launch event, you're in the right place. We'll be starting in just a few minutes when everyone has had a chance to connect. We'll be with you soon. If you're looking for the Old Tattered Flag book launch event, you're in the right place. We'll be starting in just a few minutes when everyone has a chance to connect. I see a lot of people signing in. We'll wait a few more minutes so everyone has a chance to join in. We'll start the event at 11:01. Hello, everyone. This special event is brought to you by Rug Hooking Magazine. I'm Deborah Smith, editor of Rug Hooking Magazine, now working from my home in South Central Pennsylvania. I've been editor since 2009, 11 years now, and it's still the best job ever. Just imagine if you can. Artists and rug hookers send me their very best work, intriguing stories, and their fabulous projects. And I get to choose from all of that to create 5 issues for you each year. What great fun. If you love rug hooking, you will love what we have to offer. We've been publishing since 1989, bringing you all the best from the world of rug hooking. For our viewers today, we have a special offer, a 1-year subscription for $19.95 for anyone new to Rug Hooking Magazine. Sign up at rughookingmagazine.com/RHM2020 and start enjoying stories, inspiration, and projects coming right to your home from rug hooking artists from around the world. First of all, a great big thank you to our webinar sponsor, Nancy Jewett from Fluff and Peachy Beans Designs. Have you heard about the Wool Club from Fluff and Peachy Bean Designs? It's an opportunity to get samples of Nancy's fabulous dyed wools. Samples are mailed out 4 times each year in January, April, July, and October. Each mailing includes 12 samples of Nancy's premium hand-dyed wool, and some mailings include a new velvet color. Nancy suggests that members put each mailing into a notebook or a file to keep them handy. The wool can be reordered at any time. Subscribers really love the service. It's like having Nancy sitting by your side as you color plan your next rug. For more information, visit Nancy's website or email Nancy at nancydjewett@yahoo.com. First, let's talk about a few housekeeping issues. If you get disconnected, you can reconnect using the same link. You will not be interrupting the talk. We are recording today's webinar, so if you have technical difficulties, don't worry. We'll send you a link and you can watch it later, and it will be posted on the RHM website very soon. We have the Q&A feature enabled on this event, so if you have a question for Julie or Carol, send it in, and if there's time, we'll try and answer a few of them at the end. So let's get started. Many of you know Julie and Carol from the Old Tattered Flag. Well, their first book is now available. This morning we'll give you a taste of what you will see in Tattered and Timeless, and I hope it convinces you that it is a must-read and essential for your rug hooking bookshelf. So without further ado, let's talk a bit to Julie and Carol. Good morning, Julie and Carol. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Julie, would you tell us a little bit about what made you decide to write this book?
Well, the short answer is that a book was always on my bucket list, but the broader answer is that Mom and I have been doing this officially for a little over 10 years, but Mom's been hooking since 1995, and she taught my sister and I in the early 2000s, and I've been punching since the early 2000s. And so throughout all those years, we received a lot of questions, and we just thought that it would be a good way to compile all those questions into a book, share a little bit of the way that we do things. And that's why we were happy to partner with you.
So you have 7 projects in this book. How did you decide what kinds of projects to include? How did you pick the themes?
Well, because with the Old Tattered Flag, we decided that we had to do something with flags, number one. And I think we just went through and did things that we like, that we found interesting. There were a couple that we kind of threw out because after we decided to do them, we weren't happy with them. So we went back and forth, and I would say possibly for me, the best one that I like is the flag with the star in the center. That was my favorite one to do.
It was a decision to decide if we wanted to go all patriotic or if we wanted to go more the seasonal route and kind of include a little bit maybe from each time of year, which is what we ultimately settled on.
So tell me about the frequently asked questions section of your book. It's really quite large, very inclusive, with lots and lots of good information. What made you decide to do that in the book?
Because I think that's a part of the book, any book really, where you can go and just get quick answers. And for both Mom and I, we I write like I talk. So that's the easiest way for me to write, is if I have a question, I can just write until the cows come home about, well, here's how I do it and this and that. And so sometimes I would go ahead.
I like to talk.
Mom likes to talk. Yes.
You both like to talk. I can vouch for that.
But no, it was, I think facts are a great part of any book, because that's a easy place to go to. If you're going along, you're thinking, how did she say this? I think she mentioned that in the book. I'm going to go look, and that's a quick go-to to get the answer.
Yes, it's very, very handy. I've referred to it myself a couple of times. So thank you. It's a great section.
Thank you.
So writing the book was a labor of love for sure. And as anybody who now owns the book, or hopefully will own it soon, it's a tantalizing peek into the world of the old tattered flag. So now it's time for what we've been waiting for, a tour of the old tattered flag workshop. Then Julie and Carol will demonstrate 2 of their finishing techniques. So without further ado, let's step into the shop and see where Julie and Carol hang out and welcome rug hookers and punchers.
This is Julie.
And this is Carol.
We're the mother-daughter team from the Old Tattered Flag, and we'd like to welcome you to our shop for a little tour. Deb from Rug Cooking Magazine asked us to do a studio tour, and we don't really have a studio. We have our shop / studio / glorified warehouse where we fill all of our website orders. Our shop is open 3 days a week, so that gives us 4 days to kind of play in this beautiful area. And we'd like to take you on a little tour to show you our little shop. Thank you.
Kitchen. This is where we wash, dry, dye, clean up, get messy, do a little bit of everything. This is wool that's going to be dyed tomorrow. Anything that's on the dryer over here has been washed and is ready to put on a shelf. This has all been washed and ready to put on a shelf. Our little refrigerator for snacks. My stove. I have 8 burners that I can work with, a couple of ovens, 3-bay sink, 2 wash machines. So we're quite efficient in here. And if you come through here, this is a little passageway, microwave, more wall. This is my workstation where I put kits together, fill orders, help customers. And this is the wool room, which may I say is very pleasant compared to where I was before, because I was at a separate house. So in the middle of winter, I would schlep stuff over. And now I can just pick off the shelves, which I absolutely love. This is where we show students how to hook, let them sit, let them practice a little bit. We have dyes, we have patterns in here, we have kits in here, we have hand-dyed wool, we have as-is wool. We have bags with strips in it, a little bit of everything in here.
And we have a nice view out the back window.
And we do sell some gifts. We sell a little bit of other people's things. Lisa's, my daughter from Vermont, we sell some of her things that are related to hooking.
So this is Mom's happy place, right?
Yep, it is.
All right. important part in our studio / store. This is where you'll find someone here, either myself or Denise or Charlene or Connie, Piper. This is where we cut a lot of fabric, we color plan, I'll come out here and draw patterns, we put kits together, we cut fabric, we cut wool off the bolt, everything happens here. If it's not happening in Mom's neck of the woods in there in the wool studio, it's probably happening here or in this next area that I'm going to show you. This is the actual starting point of the old tattered flag. This is where I'll do some drawings and put them on fabric and then bring them to Mom and say, okay, Mom, do your magic now. And she takes over in the wool room. But this is kind of where the nuts and bolts and everything are. This is where we have all of our computers are back here for printing various things. This is where I do more office work. I don't really sit here that often, but I do. Didn't make sense. This is kind of where we put, this is a mess. This is how it should be though, right? I could show you everything clean and neat and pretty, but it's never that way here, so you need to see the real us. This is my favorite place to be right here. This is where I brainstorm, I draw, we draw the patterns, we buy our fabric on big rolls and then we kind of can unroll it easily. This is where all the drawing is done. These are all our pattern covers in addition to some that are back there that you're not going to see because there's trash back there. We have quite a selection of Valdani back here for making kits. Messy file folders. This is our big light table. Don't get too down, Mom, because our big light table where we draw on monk's cloth over here. We can draw on linen on the big table. And our serging machines. So this is really where it all starts. Pattern making and packaging, and then they go out to the shop. You've seen something that no one else has seen. Okay, here we are at the big red table in our shop, and Mom's going to show you a little demonstration on how to add a braided edge to your finished hooked rug. But before she starts, I want to show you that this is the edge we used for our feed sack florals design in the book Tattered and Timeless. So you can see that we provided designs for hooking and for punching. We have done the braided edge on both pieces, but you can see that the braid on the punch needle piece is smaller than the hooked rug piece. That's the only difference in this technique, is that you want to make your strips a little bit smaller for the punch needle piece. You don't want the braid to kind of take over the design. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mom. She's going to show you what she's doing here.
Okay, I have taken 3 strips. I've braided them. I would not use this color on this. I'm just doing this so you can see what I'm doing, and I'm using a different color thread. So I'm laying this to the side. I'm just coming up. Now, if my thread was the exact same color, hopefully you wouldn't be able to see this. And I'm just barely catching this braid. I'm not trying to tighten it up too much, and I don't want to pull on the braid. I want to leave it nice and loose, and I want to just put my needle in here a little bit, and I want to put my needle in here.
So what would happen if you pulled the braid too tight?
It's going to make it pucker.
It would
and
distort
it's going to make it look unnatural. So if you can look at these that I've done, which is in a different color, both. Now this should be blue and this should be blue. I'm just going all the way around my rug, very carefully putting it in here and putting a little bit in here.
So you've butted the braid right up to the edge of your finished rug. Now, you may have read in our book that for smaller round pieces, we use a whole cloth backing piece. That's because we don't want, you can use rug binding, but we prefer a smoother finish to the back of our small round pieces. Using the whole cloth backing is a nice alternative. That has been put on before she added the braid.
Yes. And if it was the same color and the same color thread, you would not be able to tell what I was doing.
So the color braid is just for video purposes. We wanted you to
Exactly.
be able to see what we were doing here.
So I would go all around this like this. When I would get to the end here, I would try to match these, how these are braided, into how this is braided, and sew them together here after I had gone all around.
So you're
the
going to
border.
incorporate those tails
These
from
here
the end into the
here.
beginning.
Yes. You try to do it neatly. Every once in a while, I'll take my scissors and kind of snip off a little to kind of, so it won't have a lot of bulk.
Now, your braid doesn't look like a perfect braid. Explain the braiding technique to me.
The braiding technique is not to, I don't do anything to my edges. I just leave it and I braid it as I like it. This is what I like. This is my rug, and I like to leave it like that.
So she doesn't turn the braided edges under, as we prefer a more ragged, primitive edge. As you can see right here again, the same technique was used. Mom worked from the back, and she simply butts the braid right up to the edge. Those stitches you see are actually from the wool binding she put on. So you can't even see her stitches for the braid. I did the same thing for the punch needle. My stitches are a little bit more visible. I like to see stitches personally. I think it's a handmade item. I don't have a problem with seeing stitches. It's really up to the individual on how handmade they want their piece to look. So that's the braided edge technique. It can be found in our book, Tattered and Timeless. I'm going to show you my favorite technique for finishing a hooked rug or a punch needle. We learned this technique from Betsy Reed, so I want to thank her first and foremost. It's my favorite technique. I think it gives it a nice primitive finish, and it's usually my go-to. So if you'll see here on our old white pumpkin design that is in Tattered and Timeless, both Mom and I use this technique. It's the twisted wool edge. We always, well, I don't want to say we always, but for this one, we use the same color wool that is in the outer edge of the rug. I did that also with the thread for the punch needle. We wanted it to kind of blend in with the design and just give it a nice finish without really overtaking the design, so that's why we kept the color the same. This is a really easy technique, so let me show you over here. This is a design that I would probably not normally add this to because this is fine just as is. This is not in the book. This is called Nick, and this is one of the punch needles in our shop. So you're going to tear your strip of wool. The size of the twisted edge is going to be dependent on how wide you tear your strip. So if you want a larger twisted edge, you're going to tear your strip larger. You could go 1.5 to 2 inches for a hooked rug. You could even go larger, you could go thinner. You will learn over time as you do this technique what size strip works well for you. For a punch needle, I usually tear the strip about 1 inch wide. And then I'm going to start twisting, get my twisted strip going. You almost need 3 hands to say this. I say that often. I like to work from the front, and I always start my twisted strip or braided strip or any edging. I start it in the middle of the bottom of the piece. The reason, and I wouldn't normally use this color thread, I'm just doing this so you can see it better. But, the reason I start in the bottom is because I feel like it's unobtrusive for the design. I'm going to want to blend as I come to the end. I'm going to want to blend these two together. But as you can tell right here, if you started on the sides or the top, you might see just a little bit of a difference where you end it. I don't know if you can see it on the bottom. I just feel like it's more unobtrusive on the bottom. It's just me. So I'm going to anchor my first stitch in. Then I'm going to kind of hold onto my thread, keep it taut, and I'm going to do a twist or two. And then I'm going to go around, come back up underneath, come through my loops. I just want to hit the edge of the design. Make sure to pull my thread so that it goes in the right place where I want it to go. Pull it taut, pull my thread around again. I've still got my twist going on, so I can do a couple stitches per twist. Now I'm going to do a couple more twists, kind of hold it in place, pull it around again. I'm going to keep going until I get to the corner so you can see how I do a corner. This wool actually blends in nicely with the color of the thread. The color of the thread in the punch needle piece. I'm going to keep going around, coming in from the back, pulling it up. I'm getting close to the corner. As you go along, you'll find an evenness in your stitches that will create kind of like a nice,
Gives it a good finish.
a nice puckered, I want to say puckered, but that's not the word I'm looking for. A nice,
Gives it a nice full finish to me.
yeah. So we're twisting and stitching. Twisting and stitching. You see how easy it was to round that corner. You just kind of round it gracefully is what I like to say. I'm going to do a couple more stitches. Twist, wrap around, and stitch. Twist, wrap around, and stitch. So you can see that gives you a nice edging on your punch needle piece or your hook rug. You can do your twisted edge tightly, or you can leave it a little looser, which is what both Mom and I did with the old white pumpkin. You can match your thread to the twisted wool edge and the thread or wool in your finished piece, or you can put a different thread in. You might want the thread to pop from the wool. That's completely up to you. That's the wonderful thing about an edging, is that it's up to you to choose that final edge that you want. And if you want the design of the final edge to just kind of be subtle, or if you want it to pop and be an added element to your rug or punch needle piece. So that's the twisted wool edge, and it's one of my favorites.
Thank you, Julie. That was a great demonstration. It's nice to see you guys in action. If you would like to order a copy of Tattered and Timeless, go to our website, look for the shop tab, and as a special thank you for joining us today, we will be giving away a copy of Tattered and Timeless. Cross your fingers, maybe you'll be the lucky winner. For those of you not yet book club members, join now to get Tattered and Timeless for the special price of $21.95. Use the code you see on the screen and check out all the other advantages of the book club. We'd love to have you join us. And we have another special deal just for you. Select books are on special sale, 50% off the original prices. Use the special code TAT20 when you check out. And don't forget about our special magazine sale. New subscribers to Rug Hooking Magazine can purchase a subscription for just $19.95. And I can tell you that we have some pretty great issues coming up. Use the code you see on the screen as you check out. Now we have a few minutes for Julie and Carol to answer some questions. Let's see what we have here. What kind of thread do you use? I would imagine this is for one of the finishings. Carol and Julie, can you speak to that?
I have a tendency to use any kind of thread. If I've got Valdani, I'll use that. If I've got just a regular DMC floss, I'll use that. I think Julie always gravitates towards Valdani.
I
don't you?
do, because I use primarily Valdani when I'm punching. So I use, whatever I've used in the overall design pretty much, or I try to match it to the particular wool that I'm using. If I do use like a DMC style thread, I'll only use 2 or 3 strands. Do you also?
Just 2 or 3.
2 or
I'll
3
always-
strands. Yep.
And while we're talking about thread, a question came in. How well does the thread hold up on floor rugs?
I've never had a problem. I've got a couple of rugs that have been on the floor for 20 some odd years, and I've never had a problem. However, I will say the ones that are on the floor, I used a heavier thread than a DMC floss.
I don't think that we put a lot of the rugs on the floor that have a special edging. Although, no, we have put braided ones on, but like not often. I would say the decorative edges are more for like if you're going to hang your rugs, the braid, the twisted edge, but using the thread for the binding, which is also in the book, we use wool binding. We've never had a problem. And we use Valdani or DMC.
Here's a question about how you hang small rugs on your walls. I know you have a bit about that in the book. Can you speak to it here, Julie?
Go ahead, Julie. You're the one who hangs it on the wall.
Well, a lot of people probably don't agree with the way we hang the rugs, but we take a tiny little brad nail for punch needles, about maybe 1/2 inch, and for hooked rugs, maybe 3/4 inch. Very, very, very tiny little nail, if it's a small rug. So we'll talk about big rugs later. If it's a small rug, we just kind of nestle it between the loops and just do a couple pounds with the hammer to hold it onto the wall. We change our rugs around often in the shop and the house, so it's not going to be permanent, though we've never had a problem hanging a rug that way. Now, if you're hanging a large rug, we put a sleeve on the back of the rug, slide a piece of wood, like a long dowel or something, in it, and then attach it that way, because you want that piece of wood to hold the weight of the rug. Did that answer?
Going back to your twisted finish method, a question came in about how do you join the next strip when you're doing that method? How do you, you're going to run out of the twisted strip. How do you join the next one going in?
Yeah, you're going to kind of nestle them together like this, and then just keep with the twisting, paying special attention to that area where they're joined. So you may have to put a couple extra stitches in. I'm sorry, I'm doing a lot of talking. Would you like to say something?
No, you sometimes I cut them on a diagonal and I'll just sew them together, but I'm very conscientious as I'm twisting it, how that piece is looking. I'm tucking and hiding, I guess is a good thing, what I would call.
And she cuts it on the diagonal to prevent bulk, I'm assuming. Right.
Yes.
So here's a question for you. What's the best way to finish the edge on a large, round, hooked rug? Any ideas? Any suggestions?
If I don't put a full backing on it, I usually use a strip of wool. When I'm usually backing a regular rug, a strip of wool to back it is usually 1.5 to 2 inches. But when I'm doing a round rug, I'll only make it 1/2 inch, because the more I'm coming around the rug, not necessarily the outside of the rug, I'm doing fine, but when I want to tack that on, it's like I have to kind of push those little pieces of wool closer together so that I'm not getting a big pucker, is what I don't want to pucker. So if I had 2 inches, I'd have a lot of waste to me.
So she wants less gather when she's going around those
Right.
curves to prevent less bulk.
Here's a punch needle question. How do you move a large punch needle on the frame without snagging the threads?
That's the question I get probably the most. And we do a lot of large pieces, and I use my standard 9x12 frame. I've never had a problem. I've seen people talk about a saran wrap method where they lay it over the top of the grippers because they feel like that helps lessen the burden of the piece on the gripper teeth. But honestly, I've never used that version, that method, and I've never had a problem. The important thing is to remember that those teeth are pointing outwards on all four sides. So if you take your punched piece and it's on the frame and you tug it so that it comes off those teeth, you can then peel it up and off. I've never had a loop pull.
It's a little bit of a slow process. You're not going to tear it off quickly. You're going to bring it out and then lift it up.
Bring it out, lift it up. And you also want to make sure that only the portion that needs to be on the teeth is on the teeth. So if you can put primarily weaver's cloth on maybe two sides of the frame, try to do that also.
Oh, that's a good suggestion. So patience and weaver's cloth.
Yes.
Yes.
Here's a good question. Why can't I hook like you? I want my hooking to look like your hooking.
Your hooking isn't going to look like my hooking because you don't write like me. Everybody has a different writing habit, and I think everybody hooks different. And I have a lot of people say, but I don't like the way I hook. To me, it's a very personal thing. I do not hook like Julie. Julie does not hook like Lisa. But we're all satisfied with how we hook. And I think you have to learn to be content with how you're hooking. It's specialized to you. So I would say don't angst too much about how you hook with somebody else, like somebody else. You want to be you.
It's your hookmanship.
Yes, that's it.
That's good advice. And one last question here. Why does my wool shred?
That's another question we get a lot of.
Yes. Different wools handle differently. And I always say, if you're working on something and you love the wool and it shreds because it's not woven quite so tightly as another one, if it's giving you the look that you want for that rug, persevere, stick with it. I have a rug that I did several years ago that the front of it looks great. It gave me exactly the look I wanted. I wanted a dusty road look to it. It looked perfect. The back is a little bit shreddy. I can live with that. And I think you have to adjust. And I do think that a lot of people who begin hooking tend to shred their wool a little bit more. And I think the wool that they start to work with as they change the process, I think they have to adjust themselves to work with that wool.
If you're a new hooker, what I see when we teach, 99% of the hookers put their hook in the actual piece of the wool. They don't understand that the hook is just merely a guide for you to pull it up, pull.
To scoop it.
That little hook on the end is just merely to hold that strip on the shaft. 99% of new hookers will stick that hook into the piece of wool, and that's going to shred it. And the other thing they do is oftentimes they'll rock it, and rocking is good sometimes, but not excessively, because if you excessively rock to pull it up, you're trying to pry it, the wool can shred also.
Mhm.
That's great advice. Thank you. Thank you, Julie and Carol. It was really fun to talk to you about all these things and about your new book. So once again, I want to thank Nancy Jewett of Fluff and Peachy Bean Designs for sponsoring this event. Check out her wool club and the cheery, bright, and oh so hookable wool. You'll be glad that you did. A few items as we wrap up. Remember to visit the Rug Hooking Magazine website to take advantage of all the special deals we have. We'd love to have you in all the Rug Hooking Magazine family. And last but not least, it's time to enter your rug in Celebration 31. Call for entries is in the current Rug Hooking Magazine issue, and it's posted on the RHM website. We can't wait to see what you will enter this year. So thank you all for coming to our events. We really appreciate it. To everyone watching, I miss you all. Someday we're going to be going to rug shows and hook-ins again. Until then, stay healthy, stay happy, and keep on hooking. Goodbye, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you.
Deb, we did have a couple more questions if we wanted to stay on and answer them.
Sure. Julie and Carol, are you ready?
We're
You
still here. I forgot where
Okay.
the turn.
Yeah,
On
we
and
got
off.
a flurry of questions at the end, so I thought, why not?
Okay.
Let's see.
How thick is the wool for the braid?
That depends on how thick you want your overall braid to be.
I usually go like a 1/2 inch.
Yeah, I mean, and it also depends on the design. If you just want a subtle, but if you think the design is strong in the rug, I'm sorry, I'm kind of overtaking your area. But and for punch needle, if you just kind of want a little subtle edge, go smaller with your braid. But if you want to, you can also I did a design with actually 3 braids around it. And that really kind of became the wow factor of the piece because the design was so simple. But if you're asking particulars,
Well, I was going to say a couple of times you've also taken and cut your wool on the cutter and done a braid with it, like an 8.5.
yeah,
So
tiny
you're getting a
strips.
very tiny braid if you had a small object that you
Ah.
wanted. But for me, I tend to go maybe a 1/2 inch. That's my comfort. That's my comfort zone for me.
So how do you finish the edge of a hooked rug before you sew on a twisted edge?
I take a strip of, yeah, I don't know if you can see it on that one or this one better.
Probably the light one, yeah.
I take an 1.5 to 2 inch strip of wool. I rip and tear it. I don't know if you can see this or not. Because I'm left-handed, I start on the left-hand side and go to the right, and then I tack it down. I'm also a cheater as far as measuring. Sorry. I always put my strips right straight across. When I put my final strip on, I just fold it back, cut it. Meanwhile, the other piece of wool that's underneath goes right to the end. So it looks like I've mitered the corner, but I haven't.
So you cut that top strip. She'll cut the top strip because this part's already been sewn on. She's sewn it right to the edge and then she's tacked it on. Then she puts this strip over it and then she'll do a diagonal cut. That's her cheater miter. Right.
It's my cheater miter, yes.
Yes.
I don't know if that'll help, but I go left to right because I'm left-handed, and you go right to left because you're right-handed, right?
Right.
Does that help?
Here's another question. Are you using, do you use pearl cotton in your punch needle sometimes?
That's primarily what I use. Number 8 pearl cotton from Valdani. Yes.
Okay. How do I keep my punch needle thread from going into part of the design? What's the best way to keep them separate?
Even the most experienced puncher is going to have to manipulate any errant loops when done punching. For instance, like on this one, these lines were meant to be kind of like a perfect line, but I may have to go through after with either the tip of my punch needle or the tip of my scissors and just kind of put
Got
those loops into place. Sometimes it works out where it comes out pretty good and you don't have much manipulation to do, and then other times you have a lot. That's
Okay, here's
particularly true with star points, eyes, berries, tiny little detail points.
Nothing.
Here's a dyeing question, I guess, for Carol, maybe. What product do you use to prep your wool for dyeing?
I tend to use, when I start my wool to soak it, I use Dawn. And I like Ivory to wash it with, but can't say I'm, how do I want to say it? I can't say that I'm 100%. If I had something different besides Dawn or Ivory, I would use it.
So it's not a steadfast rule.
It's not a steadfast rule for me. I'm very comfortable with both of the products, so I'm happy with them.
Okay, and back to the twisted finish again. What was the width of the wool strip that you used for that twisted finish?
For this one
For the
here.
punch needle, it was probably about maybe a half to 3/4 of an inch. For the hooked rug, I'm guessing you went kind of small.
About a 1/2 inch.
Yeah, half to
That's
3/4
my
of an
comfort
inch.
zone for me, is a 1/2 inch.
You can see that the twisted, I don't know if you can see, that the edges are very similar in size. Mom just wanted to keep her edging on the small side. Again, you don't, if you have a design that's relatively strong and you just want to do an edging just to kind of give it a little bit of oomph, but you don't want it to overtake your whole design, go small with your twisted edge or your braid.
Okay, I think that's all the questions we have right now. So thank you again for answering them all. That's great. It's nice to hear it straight from the people who are the experts. And thank you one more time for showing us around your lovely shop and your workspace. Everybody who has a chance to get up to very, very, very northern New York should definitely stop in sometime. It's lovely and they are very welcoming. So once again, thank you all.
We do want to thank you, Deb. And we also would like to thank Nancy at Fluff and Peachy Bean.
Yes,
And thank you all for joining us.
yes. Appreciate it.
And thanks to everyone for coming. Hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.